The day I called the police on my own brother, I lost everything. My mother told me I was dead to her. My father said I had no place in his family anymore. My sister posted on Facebook for our entire town to see that I was a jealous liar who would do anything for attention. I was erased from the group chat, from Thanksgiving, from Christmas, from every birthday, every Sunday dinner, every family memory that came after. For 5 years, I had nothing. No calls, no visits, no acknowledgement that I even existed. And here's what none of them knew. I wasn't the only one. There were 7 others, all of them connected to the same family, all of them carrying the same secret, all of them silent until they weren't. What happened in that courtroom didn't just change my life. It cracked open a truth that my family had been burying for over a decade. And when it finally came out, it came out at all once. My name is Cassandra Weil. I'm 33 years old, and this is the story of how I lost my family, rebuilt my life from nothing, and watched the truth do what I never could: finish what I started. Welcome to Soulful Drama Stories, where silence finally meets its reckoning. If you're new here, stay with me. You're going to want to hear every single word of how this one ends. Hit subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Now, let's go back to the beginning. I grew up in Clover Falls, Indiana, population 14,000, the kind of town where the high school football coach gets more respect than the mayor. And if your last name means something, people remember it for generations. The Weil family meant something in Clover Falls. My parents, Donna and Robert Weil, had lived in the same house on Birchwood Lane for 29 years. Church every Sunday, block parties every 4th of July, Christmas lights that my father put up the weekend after Thanksgiving without fail, no matter how cold it got. There were 3 of us kids. Dominic was the oldest, then me, Cassie, everyone called me, then my younger sister, Violet, who was 6 years younger and practically raised by Dominic since our parents worked double shifts through most of her childhood. Dominic was everything in that house. He was handsome, charming, quick with a joke, and he had this way of making every single person in the room feel like they were the most important person there. He opened a landscaping company at 24, Weil Greenworks, and within 3 years, he had 32 employees, commercial contracts with 3 school districts, and his face on a billboard on Route 40. My father called him proof that hard work pays off. My mother called him her greatest achievement. The whole town called him a good man. And me, I was the quiet middle child who left for nursing school at 18 and came back at 22 with a degree, $43,000 in student debt, and zero fanfare. No billboard, no company, no standing ovation. I got a job at Clover Falls Community Clinic, night shifts, 12 hours, 4 days a week. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment on Sycamore Street, paid my bills on time, showed up to Sunday dinners, passed the bread, laughed at my father's bad jokes, and kept my head down. I didn't need the spotlight. I never did. I just needed my family. I didn't know yet what it would cost me to keep them. It started at Easter dinner, not with a confrontation, not with a fight, with a sentence I wasn't supposed to hear. I was in the kitchen refilling the water pitcher when Haley's voice floated in from the back hallway. She was 15, skinny kid with glasses and a habit of chewing the end of her sleeves when she was nervous. She was nervous right now. She was talking to Violet, and I heard Violet's response first. Just don't be alone with him, okay? Just make sure someone else is always around. My hand froze on the faucet. I set the pitcher down slowly. I walked to the doorway. Haley saw me. Her face went pale. Violet stepped slightly in front of her. Not protective, blocking. "We're just talking," Violet said. I looked at Haley. "You okay?" She nodded, too fast. After dinner, I found Haley sitting on the porch steps alone, arms wrapped tight around her knees. I sat next to her, didn't say a word for a long minute. Then, "Haley, you can tell me. I'm not going to make it worse." She told me. She told me everything. I drove home with both hands gripping the wheels so hard my knuckles went white. I sat in my parking lot for 37 minutes, engine off, staring at nothing. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the Henderson County Sheriff's Office, and that was the moment my family decided I was the enemy. I need you to understand something before we go further. I didn't make this call out of anger. I didn't make it out of jealousy. I didn't make it to destroy anyone. I made it because Haley was 15 years old, and she was sitting on those porch steps like she'd been carrying something too heavy for her body for a very long time. And I was a nurse. I had spent 4 years in school learning that when someone is hurt, you don't look away. You don't wait for permission. You don't ask who will inconvenience. You make the call. So I made it, and my family made theirs. The investigation moved fast. Dominic was questioned within 60 hours, and within 60 hours, my mother called me. It was 8:47 at night. I was getting ready for my shift. I saw her name on the screen and I picked up before the second ring. She didn't say hello. Do you have any idea what you've just done to this family? Mom, he is your brother. He is your blood. And you went to the police like he was some kind of stranger? I pressed my back against the wall. Haley told me herself, Mom. She was crying. She was scared. She's a teenager, Cassandra. Teenagers misremember things. Teenagers exaggerate. This isn't something you exaggerate. Her voice dropped low and controlled. The kind of controlled takes practice. If you don't go back to that detective and tell her you made a mistake, you are not welcome at this table anymore. Do you understand me? I want you to sit with that for a second. My mother didn't ask if Haley was okay. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't say, let's find out what really happened. She said, protect the table. I can't do that, Mom. Then you've made your choice. She hung up. I didn't move for a long time. Then I put on my scrubs, I drove to the clinic, I clocked in. And that was the last real conversation my mother had with me for 5 years. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was only the beginning of what they were about to take from me. My father called the next morning. I picked up hoping, I don't know what I was hoping for. A question, a pause, anything that sounded like a father who loved his daughter more than his son's reputation. I got 4 words. You've shamed this family. Click. 4 words. 29 years of being his daughter. 4 words and a dial tone. That afternoon, Violet posted on social media. She didn't tag me. She didn't need to. Everyone in Clover Falls knew exactly who she meant. Some people will tear down everyone around them just to feel powerful. Sad, disgusting. We know who you are. Over 200 likes. A comment from my mother. A red heart. I stared at that red heart for a long time. The case lasted 8 weeks before it collapsed. Haley's parents, my aunt and uncle, pressured her to recant. They didn't call it that. They called it clarifying her memory. Same outcome. Without her testimony, the DA couldn't move forward. The charges were dropped. Dominic went back to work, back to church, back to Sunday dinners on Birchwood Lane. The town exhaled. It was a misunderstanding, a jealous sister, a confused teenager. Case dismissed. The detective who handled my report, a woman named Priya Okafor, called me the day the case closed. Her voice was careful. I'm sorry, Cassandra. I believe you, but without more, I can't go forward. Then she said something I held on to for 5 years. I'm keeping this file open. If anything changes, I'll find you. I didn't know how much those words would matter. Not yet. The exile was total. First, the group chat. I watched my name disappear from the wheel crew on a Wednesday afternoon while I was eating lunch at my desk. 1 second I was in, the next it was gone. 22 years of family inside that thread, deleted in a single swipe. Then the holidays. I drove past Birchwood Lane on Christmas Eve. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I thought seeing the lights would make it feel less real. Every window was lit. My father's candy cane lights lined the driveway the same way they did every year. Cars I recognized in the driveway. I kept driving. My birthday came in March. No call, no text, no card. For the first time in 23 years, Donna Wheel did not call her daughter on her birthday. I wrote my mother a letter, 4 pages. I told her why I reported. I told her I loved her. I told her I would rather spend every holiday alone than pretend I hadn't heard Haley's voice on those porch steps. She never replied. I sent Violet a birthday gift, a silk scarf in her favorite shade of green. I'd seen her eyeing one exactly like it at the market the year before. The box came back 2 weeks later, unopened, returned to sender. I held that box for a long time. The bow was still tied, the paper was still smooth. She hadn't even looked inside. What my mother did next, I still can't fully forgive it, and you'll understand why in a minute. I lasted 4 more months in Clover Falls. Then I left. I moved on a Tuesday in July, 5:15 in the morning before the town woke up. 1 suitcase, 1 box of books, my nursing license, and my grandmother's silver bracelet that I had worn every single day since she gave it to me on my 16th birthday. That bracelet was the last thing I had that felt like love without conditions. I didn't look back when I drove out of Clover Falls. I went north to Fort Wayne, 2 hours away, anonymous, loud, and full of people who had no idea what my last name meant. I got a job at Parkview Regional Medical Center within 10 days. Night shifts, same hours, different building. Nobody looked at me differently. Nobody spelled my name wrong on purpose. Nobody crossed the street when they saw me coming. Those first 2 years were survival mode. I ate soup from a can 3 nights a week. I studied for my nurse practitioner certification in the evenings at the public library. I paid down my loans in small, deliberate amounts every single month. I also started therapy. My therapist's name was Dr. Amara Solis. She had warm eyes, direct voice, and zero patience for self-pity, which is exactly what I needed. 6 months in, I told her I felt like I had ruined everything. She looked at me. You didn't ruin anything, Cassandra. You refused to be the lock on someone else's secret. That's different. I wrote that on a note card and kept it on my bathroom mirror. I passed my NP certification on the first attempt. I started running, first a mile, then 5, then a half marathon. I crossed the finish line alone, and I remember thinking, this is what it feels like to be proud of yourself without needing anyone's applause. Keep watching, because in a few minutes, I'm going to tell you about the phone call that changed everything, and it came from the last person I expected. I met Jonah Reed at a farmer's market on a Saturday morning, 18 months after I moved to Fort Wayne. He was buying coffee from a small vendor, spilled it on his jacket, apologized to the jacket, and then apologized to me for apologizing to the jacket. I laughed for the first time in what felt like months. He was 34, a high school history teacher, calm in the way that still water is calm, not empty, just settled. He had a dry sense of humor and the kind of patience I had forgotten existed. 3 months in, I told him about my family. I said, "It's complicated." He nodded. "Okay." No pressure, no follow-up, just okay. 6 months in, I told him everything. We were sitting on his apartment floor after dinner, and the words came out of me like water that had been held back too long. Haley, the phone call, my mother's ultimatum, the Facebook post, the box that came back unopened. When I finished, Jonah was quiet for a long moment. Then he said 5 words. "You did the right thing." I had waited 3 years to hear someone say that. We got married the following autumn, small ceremony at a botanical garden, 18 guests, his family, 2 of my nursing colleagues, and 1 friend from college. No one from Clover Falls, no one named Wheel. I wore my grandmother's bracelet. It was enough.
Now, here's where the story shifts. Because while I was building a new life in Fort Wayne, something was quietly happening 200 miles south. Haley Marsh was 20 years old, a sophomore at Indiana State University, studying behavioral science. For a research methods class, her professor assigned a project: find a documented case study related to family systems and trauma, analyze it, write a critical reflection. Haley went to the university library database. She searched several topics. Then, on instinct, or maybe something deeper than instinct, she typed a name: Dominic Weil, Clover Falls. There was one result: a small archived piece in the Clover Falls Courier. 6 paragraphs, no photo. Local businessman questioned in connection with misconduct allegations. No charges filed. Haley stared at the screen. She read the paragraph that referred to a family member who initially reported the allegations to authorities. She knew it was me. She sat in that library for over an hour. Then she picked up her phone, not to call her mother, not to call my mother, not to call anyone in that family, and she dialed the Henderson County Sheriff's non-emergency line. Detective Priya Okafor picked up. Haley said, "I'm calling about a case you never closed." I wouldn't find out about that call for another 16 months. By then, 6 more people would have made the same one. But Haley was first. The girl who'd been sitting on those porch steps in the dark 5 Easters ago, the one Violet had tried to silence with a look, she wasn't sitting anymore. And what Detective Okafor found when she reopened that file, it would shake that entire family to its foundation. If this story is hitting close to home, if you've ever been the one person in your family willing to say the uncomfortable truth out loud, drop a comment below. Let me know you're here. And if someone in your life needs to hear this story, share it with them right now. We keep going. By the time I turned 31, my life in Fort Wayne looked nothing like the life I'd had in Clover Falls. Jonah and I had bought a small house on the east side of the city: 2 bedrooms, a crooked fence, a backyard maple tree that turned the most extraordinary orange every October. I was a nurse practitioner at a family clinic on Coliseum Boulevard, Monday through Friday. My own patients, my own schedule. I loved the work. I was good at it. And I was pregnant. Our daughter Nora arrived in June, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, loud as a siren, and perfect in every way. The life was full. It was mine. I had built it entirely without the people who said I had shamed their family. But every Thanksgiving, I set the table for 2 and felt the empty chairs. I didn't miss the people who had hurt me. I missed the family I had believed they were. There's a distance between those two things that doesn't close easily. One afternoon in early spring, a card arrived in the mail. No return address, cream envelope, my name in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Inside, a single card with a yellow tulip on the front and one line in small, careful script: "I'm sorry I stayed quiet. I should have stood next to you. Aunt Bev." Beverly Marsh, my mother's older sister. She had never publicly attacked me after I reported Dominic. She had also never publicly defended me. She had simply disappeared from my world, quietly, without explanation. I put the card in my nightstand drawer. I thought that was as close as I was ever going to get to family again. I was wrong. 6 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived from Aunt Bev. Inside, 2 pages of handwritten letter and 9 pages of printed screenshots. The letter was short. Her handwriting trembled in places. "Cassandra, I need you to see what they said about you after you left. I need you to understand what I've been living inside. And I need you to know I'm done pretending I don't see it." I unfolded the screenshots. The first was from the week I moved to Fort Wayne, my mother's message in the family group chat. "She made her choice. Her name doesn't get mentioned in this house again." Violet's reply 6 minutes later: "She was always jealous of Dominic. Everyone knew it." My father? Nothing. Not one message asking if I was okay, not one word of doubt. His silence in that thread sat there like a sealed room.
But the one that stopped my breathing was a private message from my mother to Aunt Bev, screenshotted before it could be deleted. Beverly, if you reach out to Cassandra, you are done in this family. I mean every word of that. I set the pages on the kitchen counter. Nora was in her bouncer on the living room floor, watching a mobile spin above her head. My mother had threatened her own sister with exile to keep her away from me. That's why Bev waited. Not because she didn't care, because my mother had put a wall around me and called it protection for the family. I called Bev that evening. The conversation lasted 52 minutes. I sat on the back steps while Jonah put Nora to bed, and I listened to a 58-year-old woman unravel a decade of silence. Bev told me she had known something was wrong long before I reported. A younger cousin, a girl I barely remembered from a family reunion years ago, had pulled her aside at a birthday party and whispered something she'd made Bev promise not to repeat. Bev told my mother. One conversation, kitchen table, coffee going cold. My mother's response? You're imagining things. Don't ever bring this up again. I've been carrying this for 11 years, Bev said. Her voice cracked on the number. 11 years, Cassie. You were the brave one. You always were. And I was too scared to stand next to you. I didn't have it in me to be angry at Bev. She was another person my mother had used silence as a weapon against. At the end of the call, Bev said one more thing. There are others, Cassandra. I don't know how many, but you weren't the only one. I closed my eyes. I know, I said. I didn't, really, but somewhere in me, I had always suspected. That night, something shifted in me. Not anger, not grief, something quieter and stronger than both. 2 weeks after Bev's letter, Detective Priya Okafor called me. I was in the kitchen feeding Nora when I saw the Henderson County number on my screen. I sat down on the floor right there, back against the cabinet, baby spoon still in my hand. Cassandra, this is Detective Okafor. I told you 5 years ago I'd call if anything changed. My pulse went loud. Something changed? She told me that over the past 16 months, 7 individuals had come forward independently, all connected to the same family, all reporting the same person, all with consistent corroborating accounts. 7, she said. I pressed my free hand flat on the floor. The district attorney is convening a grand jury. We're going to trial. I couldn't speak for a moment. Then, who are they? I can't share names yet, but I want you to know something, Cassandra. Your report 5 years ago is referenced in every single one of their statements. You were the reason they knew they could come forward. You opened the door. I looked at Nora. She was smacking the tray of her high chair with both palms, completely unaware that the phone call in my hand had just split my life into before and after. What do you need from me? I asked. Your testimony, if you're willing. I didn't hesitate. I'm willing. When Jonah came home that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table. Nora was asleep. The house was quiet. He took one look at my face and set his bag down. What happened? I told him. He pulled out the chair across from me and sat. After a long moment, he said, 7 people. 7 people. He reached his hand across the table, palm up. I put mine in it. This isn't a victory, I said. 7 people were hurt, and no one stopped it. You tried to stop it, he said. You were 23 years old. You called the police. Your entire family turned on you, and you still tried. I knew he was right, but knowing something and feeling it are 2 entirely different places. The grand jury indicted Dominic on 13 counts. The Clover Falls Courier ran it on the front page. It was the first time a while had been on the front page for anything other than a ribbon-cutting ceremony or a sponsorship announcement. My mother went into immediate damage control. I heard this from Bev, who was hearing it from people still in town. Donna Weil called every relative she could reach. Same message every time. This is a misunderstanding. These girls are confused. Dominic is being targeted. He is a good man, and this family will stand behind him. these girls like they were an organization, like they had planned this together. They hadn't spoken to each other before that courtroom. My father called me for the first time in 5 years. His name on my screen was a shock to the system, like touching something electric when you're not expecting it. Renee, he got my name wrong. Cassandra, he corrected himself. Dad, you need to stop this. Tell them you made a mistake 5 years ago. Tell them you exaggerated. I didn't exaggerate, and I'm not the one who came forward this time. 7 other people did. Silence. Then, this will destroy everything your brother built. He destroyed it himself, Dad. I just didn't look away. He hung up. Violet sent a text the same day. You're going to regret this for the rest of your life. I screenshotted it, forwarded it to my attorney, didn't reply. Dominic posted publicly online. I am innocent. The truth will come out. To everyone standing by me, thank you. You know who I am. Over 900 reactions, comments like, "We believe you, Dom," and "They can't take down a good man," and "Stay strong, brother." Clover Falls cracked down the middle like ice in a thaw. Half the town planted their flag with Dominic. He was the employer, the sponsor, the name on the billboard. Their loyalty to him was financial and social and deeply personal. The other half went quiet. But quiet was different. Quiet was doubt. 3 employees left Wild Greenworks without a word, just stopped showing up. The commercial school district contracts came up for renewal, and 2 of the 3 districts went with a different company without explanation. On the Clover Falls Community Board, a Facebook group with over 11,000 members, someone posted, "When 7 people independently say the same thing, maybe this town actually listens." 4,000 reactions, shared over 600 times. The moderators shut down the comments by 10 that night. I didn't read any of it. Jonah filtered it for me and only shared the ones that mattered. "There's a message from someone named Darlene," he said one evening. "She says she was a patient of yours at the clinic before you left. She says you were the most careful, most honest healthcare provider she ever had." One message, but it landed. I didn't need Clover Falls to believe me, but I needed to know that someone did. 6 weeks before trial, I sat across from the assistant district attorney in her office in Henderson County. Her name was Margaret Cho, mid-40s, sharp eyes, no patience for anything that wasn't useful. "You'll be the first witness called by the prosecution," she told me. "Not because your testimony is the strongest. It isn't. The 7 who came after you carry that. But you're the one who started it. The jury needs to understand the timeline begins with you." She walked me through every question she planned to ask. We practiced my answers 3 times in that conference room. My voice cracked on the second run-through. She stopped me. "You don't have to be perfect, Cassandra. You just have to be honest." 3 weeks before trial, I was unloading groceries from the car when I saw the silver sedan parked at my curb. A woman was standing on my porch. I hadn't seen her in 5 years, but I knew her posture before I saw her face. Donna Weil. She was smaller than I remembered. Her hair had gone almost fully gray. Her hands were clasped in front of her, fingers interlocked so tightly her knuckles were pale. I set the grocery bags down and walked up the steps. We stood 3 feet apart. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Then my mother said, "I drove 4 hours to ask you as your mother to stop this. Please, he's your brother. He hurt 7 people in our family, Mom. They are exaggerating. They are confused. Dominic would never." "7 people," I said. "All of them independent. None of them knew each other before this. 7 separate people. Same story, same person." Her eyes filled. "If you testify, I will never forgive you." I didn't look away. "You haven't forgiven me in 5 years. What's one more thing?" Her chin trembled. And then she looked past me, through the open front door into the living room. For Nora was on the floor, stacking fabric blocks, 14 months old, dark curly hair, Jonah's nose. My mother stared at her granddaughter. Her hands twitched at her sides. Her face did something complicated and private.
She didn't say a word about Nora. She turned around, she walked to the silver sedan, she drove away. 3 weeks later, I saw her again, in a courtroom. October 17th, the Henderson County Courthouse. The parking lot was packed. Jonah found a spot 2 streets over, and we walked in through the back entrance. The courtroom was built for 90. There were over 130 people inside. I walked in and felt the room divide. On the left, Jonah, Detective O'Coffer with a yellow legal pad, Margaret Cho in a charcoal blazer. On the right, my mother in a navy dress, rosary in her lap, staring straight ahead. My father in a sports coat that no longer fit him. He'd lost weight, more than I had expected. Violet in the row behind them, arms folded, jaw tight. Her eyes found me the moment I walked in, and she didn't look away. Dominic was brought in through a side door, navy dress shirt, khakis, his attorney's careful choice. He looked smaller than I remembered. The last time I had seen my brother was at that Easter dinner, charming the room, arms slung over my father's chair, filling the space like he'd built it around himself. He didn't own this room. I sat down. Jonah took my hand. I wore my grandmother's silver bracelet, not for armor, not as a weapon, just because it was mine. The people call Cassandra Weil. I walked to the stand. I smoothed my blouse. I sat down and looked at the jury. 12 faces, 8 women, 4 men, all watching. Margaret Cho approached. Miss Weil, can you tell us about the evening of April 18th, 5 years ago? And I told them. I told them about Easter dinner, about Haley's voice in the hallway, about the look on Violet's face when she stepped in front of her, about sitting on those porch steps in the dark with a 15-year-old girl who trusted me enough to tell the truth. I told them about the call I made the next morning, about Detective O'Coffer's notepad, about my mother's ultimatum. And what happened after you filed the report? I was removed from my family. My mother stopped speaking to me. My father told me I had shamed the family. My sister posted publicly calling me a liar. The case was dropped. I moved to Fort Wayne and started over. Did you have any contact with the 7 other witnesses before their reports? None. Did you coordinate or communicate with any of them in any way? No, I didn't know they existed until Detective O'Coffer called me 16 months ago. The defense attorney stood for cross. Miss Weil, isn't it fair to say you've carried a personal grudge against your brother for years? I looked at him. Then I looked at Dominic. Then I looked at the jury. I have no grudge against anyone in this room. I heard a 15-year-old girl crying. I made a phone call. That is the entirety of my involvement. I stepped down. For the first time in 5 years, someone had listened.
They came one at a time. Haley first, 20 years old. She walked to the stand with her hands at her sides and her chin level. She answered every question directly. Her voice trembled once in the middle, but she never lost her thread. When she finished and stepped down, she passed me in the gallery. She didn't smile. She just met my eyes for 1 second. One small nod. That was everything. Then a second witness, 19 years old. I had met her once at a birthday party when she was 9. She was taller than me now, and she spoke in a voice so careful and controlled, it sounded rehearsed. Not because it was, but because she had clearly spent a long time deciding exactly what she would say. Then a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth. I won't describe their testimonies here. Each one carried something private to that stand, and it belongs to them. What I will say is this. Each one walked up, said their name, told the truth, sat down, and each one exhaled when they stood up to leave. The way a person exhales when they've been holding their breath so long, they've forgotten what it feels like to just breathe. Detective O'Coffer testified after the sixth witness. She laid her yellow legal pad on the railing and walked the jury through 5 years of a file she had never closed. 7 individuals, she said. All came forward independently. None had prior contact with each other. All accounts are consistent in detail and timeline. I have worked this case for 5 years, and I have never seen 7 unrelated reports align this closely. The courtroom was still. The heavy kind of still, the kind that presses on your chest. And then something broke. On the right side of the courtroom, my mother stood up. The bailiff moved toward her, but she wasn't heading for the door. She was facing the judge, facing the room. My son is a good man. Her voice was raw, unraveling. These girls are lying, every single one of them. The judge's gavel came down. Ma'am, you will sit down or you will be removed. My father grabbed her arm. She let herself be pulled back into the seat. Her rosary clattered against the bench. Her whole body was shaking. She said it again, quieter, into my father's shoulder. I did what I thought was best for my family. I watched her from across the room. This woman who had made my birthday cakes from scratch every year until I was 18, who sat with me in the emergency room when I broke my arm at 11, who called me my brave girl, and then 5 years ago told me I was destroying everything she'd built. She was right about one thing. The family was destroyed, but not by me. It was destroyed by every Easter dinner where the truth sat at the table and nobody acknowledged it. By every, don't make this a thing. By every, she misremembers, she exaggerates, she's a teenager. By every sealed room silence that protected one person at the cost of 7. My mother didn't ruin this family by loving Dominic. She ruined it by deciding that protecting Dominic was the same thing as protecting the family. It was never the same thing. Then the DA stood. The room stilled. The people call Violet Weil. The air went out of the room. My mother's head snapped toward the aisle. My father's eyes closed. Dominic went completely motionless at the defense table. Violet stood up from behind her parents. Her legs were unsteady. She gripped the back of the bench in front of her. Then she let go. She walked to the stand. She was sworn in. She sat down. Her hands were pressed flat against her thighs, like she needed the pressure to keep her grounded. She looked at me. For the first time in 5 years, I saw my sister. Not the person who posted on social media, not the woman who sent that box back unopened, not the voice that stepped in front of Haley to keep her quiet. My sister. The girl who used to crawl into my bedroom during thunderstorms when we were little and fall asleep on the floor because she didn't want to sleep alone. She opened her mouth. I called Cassandra a liar because if she was telling the truth, then I was telling the truth too, and I wasn't ready for what that meant. The courtroom didn't gasp. It went completely silent, a different kind of silence than before. My mother made a sound, not a word, a sound. The sound of something that has been held inside for too long, finally pressing against the seams. Violet spoke, for 4 minutes. Then she looked at me one more time. I'm sorry, she said. Not to the jury, not to the judge. To me. I cried. First time in that courtroom. Jonah held my hand so tight, I could feel his pulse against my palm. 5 years, one sentence, and the entire room felt it land. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 22 minutes. We waited in the hallway. I sat on a bench and stared at the floor. Detective Okafor stood by the window with her yellow legal pad tucked under one arm. At 3:41 in the afternoon, the bailiff appeared. They're ready. We filed back in. The jury forewoman stood. She was a woman in her 60s with steady hands and a composed face. She unfolded the verdict form. On count 1, guilty. My mother grabbed my father's arm. On count 2, guilty. The forewoman read through all 13 counts. Guilty on 11, not guilty on 2. Timeline technicalities the defense had managed to complicate. 11 out of 13. More than enough. Dominic stood at the defense table without moving while the counts were read. He didn't turn to look at his family. He didn't look at me. He stood completely still, like a building that had already collapsed but hadn't started to fall yet. When the bailiff approached, he held out his wrists. They led him through the side door he had entered that morning. He didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Detective Okafor walked up to me. Her yellow legal pad was under her arm. Same one from 5 years ago, same one from every call she
People ask me sometimes, do you regret it? Do you regret making that call? And I always give them the same answer. I don't regret the call. I regret that I had to make it. I regret that 7 people spent years carrying a secret because my family taught them silence was loyalty and that protecting the table was more important than protecting the people sitting at it. But that's the thing about silence that most people don't understand. It doesn't protect anyone. It just gives the person who caused the harm more time, more access, more room. And it makes the people around them smaller, quieter, more afraid. I was afraid for 5 years, afraid that I had done the wrong thing, afraid that I had broken something that couldn't be fixed, afraid that I would spend the rest of my life paying for one phone call. But here's what I know now. I didn't break my family. My family was already broken long before that Easter dinner, long before Haley's voice in the hallway, long before I ever picked up the phone. The crack was already there. I just refused to wallpaper over it. Nora is 2 now. She runs everywhere, refuses to walk, and says more louder than any other word in her vocabulary. Our maple tree in the backyard turned orange again this October. I watched it from the kitchen window while Nora ate breakfast and Jonah read the paper, and I thought, this is what 5 years of hard work feels like. This ordinary, quiet, irreplaceable morning. I still have my grandmother's bracelet. I wear it every day. The silver has darkened in the small engraved places, and the clasp sticks sometimes on cold mornings, but I never take it off because some things are worth holding on to, even when they're worn down, even when they show every year of what they've been through. Especially then. Forgiveness is something I'm still working on, not because anyone has earned it yet, but because I refuse to carry their weight in my body for the rest of my life. Reconciliation is a different conversation, and it's not one I owe anyone on a timeline that suits them. What I owe myself is this: the truth, every time, even when it costs everything, especially then. That's my story. 5 years of silence, 7 voices, one courtroom, and a life built on the other side of all of it. If this story reminded you that the truth is always worth telling, even when the price is high, share it with someone who needs to hear it right now. If you're sitting with something you've been afraid to say, I hope this gave you something. Drop a comment below and let me know you were here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your sign. Hit that button. We tell stories here that matter. We'll see you in the next one.